Stop now. Look at your hands and ask yourself, are they instruments of construction or merely shackles of a morality that never belonged to you? The world around you is not a garden protected by divine laws or the poetic justice you learned in childhood books. It is a cold marble chessboard where every false move is punished with oblivion. If you believe that goodness is your shield, you are already dead and have only forgotten to fall. Niccolo Machiavelli was not a man of shadows, but a man of absolute light. A light so intense that it burns away the illusions people use to endure their own mediocrity. He observes you now through the centuries with the cynical gaze of one who has seen empires crumble because their leaders preferred to be loved rather than respected. The first truth he whispers in your ear is a punch to the gut of your conscience. Blind goodness is not a virtue, it is a renunciation. When you choose to be good in all circumstances without strategy or limits, you are not practicing ethics, you are declaring intellectual bankruptcy. You become a resource to be mined by those who understand that morality is merely a contingent tool. Imagine a city that leaves its gates open to prove it is peaceful. It is not virtuous, it is an invitation to plunder. You have been that city. How many times have you felt the weight of exhaustion while others climbed on your shoulders? How many times has your honesty been used as a map by traitors to circumvent your defenses? Machiavelli's brutal truth is that whoever tries to be good in a world surrounded by people who are not good walks towards their own ruin. This is not an invitation to evil, but a call to awaken your inner self. Virtue. A virtue Machiavellianism is not the kindness of the lamb, but the excellence of the lion and the cunning of the fox. It is the ability to read the wind before the storm changes the playing field. Spirituality here is not in mysticism, but in the cold acceptance of human nature. We are beings driven by need and fear, and ignoring this is the supreme sin against our own survival. The game of power does not forgive naive idealism. Ethics, for those who wish not only to exist but to govern their own destiny, must be treated as an instrument of stability. If kindness serves to maintain order and respect, use it vigorously. But if your kindness is generating chaos and making you a target, maintaining it is a form of vice, not character. You have sacrificed what you, and based on what do you think it should be. And this gap is where your enemies build their own fortresses. Every time you yield without strategy, you surrender a piece of your sovereignty. What you call tolerance, Machiavelli calls weakness. What you call forgiveness, he calls permission to be wounded again. Reflect on the hierarchies that surround you today. They were not built by men who waited for the justice of fate, but by those who forced fate to bend. Fortune, the chance that governs half of our lives, is a raging river. If you do not build dikes with your strength and strategy, it will drag you to the bottom. Are you willing to remain the shipwrecked person praying for calm waters? Or will you become the engineer who controls the river's flow? Common morality is a luxury for those who have nothing to lose, for you who seek the power to transform reality and leave a legacy that will not be extinguished by the first wind. Goodness must have a price and a direction. If your face is an open book of pure intentions, any average strategist can predict your next move and neutralize it before you even begin to walk. Political awareness begins when you stop looking at what people say and start observing what they do to survive. Every interaction is a test of strength disguised as courtesy. The board is set, the pieces are in motion, and your insistence on playing with the innocence of a child is what prevents you from occupying the center of the table. You call your passivity a virtue only to avoid admitting the terror you feel at wielding real power. But reality doesn't care about your inner purity. It only recognizes the results you imprint on the material world. What good is an immaculate soul in a body lying on the ground, defeated by those who were less good, but infinitely more prepared? This is the final frontier of your innocence. By crossing this limit, you accept that security comes not from what you offer, but from what you represent. If you are not capable of inspiring reverential awe, your kindness will always be seen as a cheap commodity, and cheap commodities are used until they are gone. Prepare yourself, for the veil has been torn. From here on, Your every gesture will be weighed on the scales of effectiveness, not social approval. Do you still believe that your passivity is a merit, or have you finally realized that the silence of the lamb is what guarantees the wolf's feast? Can your conscience bear the weight of knowing that, in the game of power, being ignored is a far worse fate than being hated? Is your kindness an act of courage, or merely the most sophisticated mask of your cowardice? Open your eyes to the invisible choreography that unfolds around you every morning. When you walk into the office and accept that extra task that doesn't belong to you, or when you smile at someone who has clearly disrespected your time, you believe you are depositing coins into a bank of eternal gratitude. But Machiavelli, observing this scene with the patience of one who knows the fabric of time, smiles back at you with a cutting pity. He knows you are not building loyalty, but rather drawing a target on your own back. Predictability is the grave of any prince. The moment the world knows exactly how you will react, that you will always forgive, that you will never say no, that your door will always be open to exploiters, you cease to be a respected presence and become a useful and silent cog. Think of that colleague everyone loves but no one listens to when the real decisions are made behind closed doors. He's the life of the party, but the last to be promoted. Why? Because constant kindness without a hint of strategic venom signals that you are harmless, and human beings, in their instinctive and brutal nature, do not respect what they do not fear. Machiavelli teaches us that the nature of men is like the weather, inconstant, fickle, and ready to change at the first sign of a storm. If you anchor your life in the hope that others will be just because you have been just, you are handing the helm of your ship to a stranger who cannot swim. Imagine the father who sacrifices every hour of his leisure to give everything to his children, without ever teaching them the value of restraint or the weight of a no. In a short time, this man's sacrifice is not seen as love, but as a basic obligation of his existence. When he finally fails or when exhaustion overcomes him, he will not receive compassion, but rather the contempt of those who have become accustomed to his servitude. It's a cruel turn of events, isn't it? But it's the rule of the game that you refuse to see. Vulnerability is not born from error. It is born from excessive transparency. If you are an open book, anyone can tear your pages. Machiavelli observes that a prince must be able to act like a lion, to drive away the wolves, but also like a fox, to recognize the traps. Most of you try to survive only as sheep, praying that the wolves will have a crisis of conscience. The mystery you must cultivate is your greatest defense. No one should know where your patience ends and your rigor begins. When you react unexpectedly to an attempt at manipulation, you break your opponent's rhythm and regain control of the board. The everyday situation of being the friend who always pays for dinner, or the relative who always solves everyone's financial problems, is in fact a test of authority that you are losing daily. You believe you are buying affection, but you are only financing the disrespect of others. Power demands an aura of inaccessibility. If you are always available, your value drops to zero. What is abundant is cheap. Machiavelli warns us that men forget the death of their father faster than the loss of their patrimony. This means that the emotional bonds you try to create with your pure kindness are like silk threads against the steel chains of self-interest. If you want to be a leader in your own life, start hiding your cards. Let people wonder what you would do if they crossed the line. The fear of an unknown reaction is 10 times more effective than gratitude for a past favor. True political and personal security lies not in the number of people who like you, but in the number of people who dare not betray you because they don't know what the price of your retaliation would be. Strategic kindness is knowing when to withdraw your hand and when to show the steel. If you never show the steel, no one believes it exists. You are afraid of seeming evil, but you forget that the worst evil you can commit is against yourself, by allowing your dignity to be ground down for the convenience of the mediocre. The chessboard of power does not accept a vacuum. If you do not occupy the space of authority with mystery and vigor, someone more cruel will occupy it for you. Your kindness is a finite resource, a treasure to be saved for alliances that truly matter, not wasted like crumbs for birds of prey. At the end of this journey, you will realize that respect is a currency only earned when you prove you can live without the approval of the majority. Are you willing to close the gates of your inner city and observe who remains by your side when the feast ends and the siege begins? Or will you continue feeding those who await only your first downfall to take your place at the table? The revelation is bitter. Those who cannot be feared will never be truly loved, for love without respect is merely a polite form of exploitation. Political awareness demands that you recognize the wolf before it smells your weakness. Would you rather be the martyr everyone praises at the funeral, or the sovereign everyone consults in life? The next move allows no hesitation. Fortune only favors those who are ready to act before the sun sets on their last opportunity for control. Now contemplate the golden chalice of your generosity and perceive the poison that drips from its edges. Machiavelli walks between the pillars of his judgment and points to a truth that your conventional morality desperately tries to hide. Excessive kindness does not cultivate gratitude. It cultivates parasites. In the brutal game of power, abundance is the mother of contempt. When you give your best constantly and unrestrictedly, you alter the market value of your own soul. What is given effortlessly ceases to be a gift and becomes seen as a guaranteed income. Man, by his innate nature, adapts quickly to comfort, and, once adapted, he does not give thanks for what he receives. He rages at what he lacks. You believe you are sowing loyalty, but you are only teaching the people around you to be addicted to your sacrifice. And like any addict, they will develop a silent hatred for the provider the moment the dose is insufficient to satisfy their expanding desires. Generosity, when not administered with the precision of an apothecary handling lethal substances, destroys the hierarchy of respect. Machiavelli teaches us that benefits should be granted gradually, drop by drop, so that they can be savored and remembered as achievements, not as acquired rights. If you flood the field all at once, the land becomes saturated and forgets its thirst. Think of that friend you saved financially 10 times. On the 11th time, if you say no out of your own need, he will not remember the 10 outstretched hands. He will focus solely on the closed door. For him, you are no longer the savior, but the betrayer of an expectation you yourself created. The mistake was not his in asking, but yours in giving without establishing the cost of your virtue. You gave him the fish, but also the illusion that the ocean was his private property. Do you realize that your inability to be scarce is what makes your presence irrelevant in moments of great decision? If you're always there, why would anyone bother to secure your support? If your yes is guaranteed, what real value does it have in the alliance market? True power lies in managing emptiness. Machiavelli observes that a wise prince keeps people in a balanced state of hope and fear. If they have everything they desire from you, they have no reason to serve you. If they have no hope of gaining anything, they will rebel. Strategic virtue demands that you learn the art of withdrawal. Planned absence communicates more than noisy presence. When you withdraw your generosity for a brief period, you force the world to recognize the void your absence leaves. It is in this vacuum that respect is reborn. Abundance blinds judgment, but scarcity sharpens the senses. The secret that great strategists keep under lock and key is that loyalty is not born of love, but of the fear of loss. If people feel they can replace you, or that your kindness is an inexhaustible resource like air, they will treat you with the same negligence with which they treat breathing. They will only notice your importance when they begin to suffocate. Imagine a leader who always forgives his team's mistakes to maintain a pleasant atmosphere. He believes he is being humane, but Machiavelli would classify him as an architect of his own disaster. By forgiving everything, he devalues success. If the reward for excellence is the same as the price for mediocrity, excellence dies of starvation. Uncritical generosity is a form of injustice against those who truly deserve your favor. You need the courage to be stingy with your time and resources, so that when you decide to be generous, the impact is seismic. A rare favor from a powerful man is worth more than 1,000 favors from a submissive man. Virtue lies in knowing that the hand that caresses must be the same hand that can punish. Otherwise, the caress is seen only as a weakness of character that others feel obliged to exploit. How many of the people who occupy your time today would be willing to give up a third of what they receive if you suddenly lost your usefulness? Are you surrounded by allies or just shadows that disappear as soon as your light ceases to emit free warmth? The most uncomfortable revelation of this journey is that your kindness can be the greatest tool for corrupting the character of others. By making life too easy for others, you prevent them from developing their own strength, making them dependent and, consequently, resentful of their own powerlessness. Machiavelli warns us that men are more likely to forget those who have done them good than those who have instilled fear in them, because gratitude is a burden on memory, while fear is a constant alert to the survival instinct. If you want to leave a legacy, stop being the invisible support and become the necessary foundation. The foundation doesn't show off, it sustains, and everyone knows that if it trembles, the whole structure collapses. Use your generosity as a high-risk investment, demanding a return in loyalty and results, instead of throwing it to the wind hoping that the law of return will do the work that your lack of decisiveness neglected. In the game of life, those who give everything they have end up with nothing, including the gratitude they sought. The poison of abundance acts slowly, numbing respect until it dies. Machiavelli concludes this lesson by reminding us that fortune is a lady who prefers those who dominate her to those who flatter her. The same applies to human beings. If you grovel to be generous, you will be trampled. If you rise and distribute your favors with the firm hand of one who knows the value of every ounce of power, you will be followed. The final question is not how much you can give, but how much you are able to retain, so that what you give truly means something. Do you prefer to be the ocean where everyone dumps their garbage or the sacred spring that men cross deserts to find? Can you bear the silence when you decide not to help? Or is your ego so fragile that you need the immediate applause of the ungrateful to feel virtuous? Would you be ready to be hated for a moment to ensure you will be respected for a lifetime? Now contemplate the silken curtain that separates who you are from what the world sees, and understand that, for Machiavelli, truth is a luxury commodity that the prince cannot afford to waste on the inattentive. He leads us backstage at the theater of power, where the lighting is designed to conceal scars and highlight medals. The fourth truth is a state secret that many refuse to accept. The appearance of goodness is infinitely more useful than goodness itself. Machiavelli observes that possessing all virtues is dangerous, for the world is a windmill ready to grind those who do not know how to bend. Real mastery lies not in having a pure heart, but in possessing the perfect mask. He tells us that the common man judges more by his eyes than by his hands, because everyone can see what you appear to be, but very few can touch your essence. If you are too transparent, you give your adversaries the exact coordinates for your shipwreck. Consider the improbable story of figures who reached the top and maintained peace for decades. They didn't do it by being authentic in the modern sense of the word. They did it through calculated pretense. Machiavelli points to the figure of Cesare Borgia, who knew how to be cruel when necessary, but who would then install a just magistrate so that the people would blame the subordinate for the suffering and thank the sovereign for the order. It's an engineering of perception. In your daily life, this translates into the ability to remain calm while the fire rages behind the scenes. If you show panic, you lose authority. If you demonstrate unwavering virtue even under pressure, you become a safe haven for others, regardless of how dark your inner thoughts may be. Unfiltered authenticity is a form of exhibitionism that Machiavelli despises as a weakness of character. Do you understand that your brutal honesty might just be a disguise for your lack of self-control? Why do you feel this desperate need for everyone to know every corner of your soul, when mystery is what generates reverence? Power is an architectural construct of light and shadow. Machiavelli reveals a curious fact about the nature of the masses. People prefer to be deceived by a lie that brings them stability than to be confronted with a truth that brings them chaos. If you wish to lead or influence, your priority is not your moral satisfaction, but the maintenance of order. This requires you to wear the mask of mercy, faith, and integrity, even when the gears of your strategy are grinding whatever is necessary to guarantee success. This is not hypocrisy. It is responsibility. A doctor does not tell a critically ill patient that he is lost if it will hasten his death. He maintains an appearance of hope so that medicine has time to act. The strategist is the doctor of his own fortune. He understands that his public image is an asset that must be managed with the coldness of a banker, protecting reputational capital at all costs. Imagine a situation where you need to make a difficult decision that will harm some to save many. If you do it openly, you will be hated as a tyrant. If you do it under the guise of inevitable necessity or protective virtue, you will be seen as a savior who took on the heavy burden of choice. History is full of improbable events where today's villain becomes tomorrow's hero, simply because they knew how to manage the timing of their mask. Political awareness demands that you recognize that personal ethics are too small a boat to navigate the ocean of collective interests. The morality of the individual is to save their soul. The morality of the prince is to save the state, or in your case, to save your project, your career, and your family from the clutches of others' fickleness. Have you ever stopped to think that humanity's greatest secrets have never been stolen, but rather hidden in plain sight, protected only by a layer of formality and etiquette? Are you playing to be applauded for your sincerity, or to be respected for your results? Machiavelli's final revelation in this section is the danger of arrogant virtue. Those who pride themselves on never lying or never wearing masks are usually the first to be manipulated by those who understand the rules of the game. They are easy pieces to move on the board because their movements are predictable. The mask of virtue is not meant to deceive the innocent, but to neutralize predators. When you appear to follow the moral rules of the group, you gain the freedom to operate in the shadows without being questioned. It is a necessary camouflage for those who walk in enemy territory. Life, for those who do not understand the power of the simulacrum, becomes a sequence of unnecessary conflicts. Whoever masters their own image masters their environment. If people believe in your goodness, your strength will be seen as justice. If they believe only in your strength, your goodness will be seen as a trap. Choose your mask carefully, for it will ultimately shape the face that destiny has reserved for you. What if I told you that the person you admire most is, in fact, the greatest master of appearances you've ever met? Would you have the courage to tear off your own skin to discover that underneath, there's only what you've chosen to build? Are you ready to stop being a spectator of others' virtues and become the author of your own legend? Prepare to enter the deepest chamber of Machiavelli's thought, where the light of common morality cannot penetrate, and where decisions that change the course of history are made in the absolute silence of necessity. The fifth truth is the most bitter and, paradoxically, the most liberating. There is a vital difference between the man who seeks holiness and the man who seeks efficiency. Machiavelli observes that if you wish to maintain order in your world, in your company, or in your family, you will at some point need to learn not to be good. He introduces the concept of reason of state, which for you means the reason of your purpose. There are times when the survival of the whole demands the sacrifice of a part, and where hesitation to act rigorously is the true crime. Imagine a ship's captain in the midst of a devastating storm. If he is nice and does not demand absolute discipline, or if he does not have the courage to throw the excess cargo overboard, he will sink with everyone on board. His kindness, in this context, would be the death sentence for the entire crew. The tension here reaches its peak because Machiavelli challenges his idea of guilt. He argues that rigor applied well at the beginning prevents far greater cruelty in the future. If you fire a toxic employee immediately, you are seen as tough. If you keep him out of pity, he will destroy the morale of the entire team and bankrupt the business, leaving dozens of families without sustenance. Who was the real villain? The leader who acted quickly, or the one who let the cancer spread in the name of false empathy? On the chessboard of power, necessary evil is not a matter of preference, but a requirement of reality. Machiavelli observes that men are more easily offended by those who make themselves loved than those who make themselves feared, because love is maintained by a bond of obligation that, given man's selfish nature, is broken at the first opportunity for profit. Fear, on the other hand, is maintained by the dread of punishment, which never leaves you. Do you have the necessary mettle to be the monster needed for order to prevail, or do you prefer the temporary peace that precedes absolute chaos? Can you sleep knowing that your kind omission caused the ruin of everything you swore to protect? The twist Machiavelli presents is that the ethics of results are the only ones that survive the test of time. He cites examples of rulers who were hated in their time for their drastic measures, but who are remembered today as the architects of peace and prosperity. History does not forgive the well-intentioned who failed. It glorifies the decisive who triumphed. In your daily life, this means you must stop asking permission to exercise the authority your position demands. Strategic evil is surgical. It is not the fruit of sadism or anger, but of a cold analysis of the available options. When you accept that moral perfection is an impossibility in the world of men, you gain the freedom to be effective. The weight of choice does not disappear, but it becomes the engine of your evolution. The fear of being judged is the last chain that binds the prince to the ground of mediocrity. Political awareness demands that you recognize the exact moment when diplomacy has failed, and force must take control. If you continue trying to dialogue with those who only understand the language of power, you are not a diplomat, you are a potential victim. Machiavelli reveals that fortune, that unpredictable force that governs half of our lives, fears the bold and despises the hesitant. If you are not willing to get your hands dirty to secure victory, fate will deliver that victory to someone less scrupulous and more prepared. Strategic spirituality is understanding that your mission in the world requires tools that are not always clean, but are indispensable for building something lasting. True immorality is having the power to change things, and letting them crumble out of cowardice disguised as holiness. Are you ready to cross the Rubicon of your own conscience and accept that victory demands a price that most don't have the courage to pay? Or will you retreat to the comfort of your illusions until reality knocks on your door with the force of an invading army? The outcome is near, and the question that echoes in the corridors of power is, are you the one wielding the knife or the meat that will be cut? The next stage is the final confrontation with your legacy, where we will discover if you have learned to govern the shadows, or if you will be devoured by them at the last second. We have reached the final precipice, the place where the echo of Machiavelli's words meets the silence of your own soul. Look back and see the illusions we left behind: blind kindness, boundless generosity, and naive transparency. Now, look ahead to the virgin territory of your own life, and understand that the awakening of the prince is not an act of cruelty, but an act of supreme love for your own destiny. Machiavelli walks beside you one last time and points to the horizon, where fortune, that indomitable and impetuous force, awaits your next move. She is not your enemy, but a demanding lover who despises those who flatter her and surrenders to those who have the audacity to seize the reins of time. This is the moment when theory dissolves into action, and where philosophy becomes the steel of your sword. Personal transformation is not born from passive reading, but from the courage to apply virtue in the fire of daily life. You've been conditioned to believe that being strong is the opposite of being good. But the ultimate truth is that only the strong can truly afford goodness. The goodness of the weak is merely a necessity. The goodness of the strong is a strategic choice that shapes the world. To apply these concepts in practice, you must begin by cultivating your own silence. From today onward, every yes that comes out of your mouth should be a significant investment, and every no should be the dam protecting the reservoir of your energy. Start small, in interactions that seem insignificant. When someone tries to usurp your time or devalue your effort, don't react with the anger of the powerless, but with the coldness of the sovereign. Establish boundaries that function like the walls of Florence, visible, firm, and insurmountable for those who do not bring with them the respect they deserve. Remember that managing your image is not a lie, but the protection of your essence. Use the mask of virtue to navigate turbulent waters, but never forget the face beneath. Strategy is what allows you to survive long enough for your true light to shine when the field is safe. You are not becoming a villain. You are ceasing to be an extra in someone else's story and becoming the author of your own legend. The inspiration Machiavelli leaves us with is that destiny is not an immutable fate, but a constant dialogue between your character and circumstances. He teaches us that the man who prepares for the storm during the calm is the one who will inherit the sun of the following morning. Feel the emotional weight of knowing that your life is your political masterpiece. Every difficult decision you made, every time you chose the outcome instead of immediate approval, was a brick in the construction of your legacy. Do not fear the judgment of the mediocre. They will always attack what they cannot understand and hate the strength they do not possess. Your journey now is solitary, like that of all great leaders, but it is a solitude inhabited by the conviction that you are finally living according to the true rules of existence. True strategic spirituality is recognizing the divine spark in your ability to create order from chaos, to protect your own, and to leave the world a little more structured than you found it. Imagine yourself 10 years from now, looking back at this very moment. What will you feel? The relief of having awakened in time, or the bitterness of having remained the sheep waiting for the butcher's mercy? The pain of discipline and strategy is temporary, but the pain of regret is eternal. Machiavelli retreats into the shadows now, leaving the baton in your hands. The board is clean, the pieces are yours, and fortune is watching, waiting to see if you will have the temper of a prince or the heart of a servant. Don't wait for ideal conditions, for they do not exist. Create them. Don't ask permission to be great. Embrace greatness as a fait accompli. Your transformation begins the very second you decide that your goodness will have a purpose and your strength a direction. The awakening is over. Now your rule begins. This script was written for those who will tire of being used and have decided to master the rules of the game. If these words resonated with your soul and opened your eyes to a new reality, don't let that fire go out. The digital cave is the refuge for those who seek the unfiltered truth. If you felt the impact of this narrative, demonstrate your virtue. Like this video so it reaches others who are still lost in the shadows of naiveté. Comment below, even anonymously, with the statement, "I choose strategic kindness." Share your reflection or a situation where you will apply these teachings from today onwards. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Here, we don't seek the comfort of illusions, but the strength of reality. You are no longer the same as when this video began. Go now and govern your destiny with the wisdom of the fox and the strength of the lion. The world is waiting for your command.